All right, let's jump right into this explainer. If you've been following the news at all, you know the situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is incredibly dire. So today, we're going to strip away the official political rhetoric. We're going to uncover the very complex geopolitical and economic realities that are actually fueling this relentless insurgency, layer by layer.
We've got a ton of ground to cover. We'll start with the immediate crisis on the ground, examine the rebels' official claims, look really closely at the foreign proxies involved, and finally, uncover the staggering economics driving this whole thing.
Section 1. The Eastern Congo Crisis, a region in turmoil. The Alliance Fleuve Congo, or AFC for short, is operating on a mind-boggling scale right now. This politico-military coalition, which is heavily driven by the M23 rebel group, has rapidly expanded. They've taken over major strategic economic hubs like Goma and Bukavu. Just to put that into perspective for a second, the AFC currently controls territory roughly the size of the entire neighboring country of Rwanda.
And the human toll of this massive expansion is absolutely catastrophic. We're talking about over 3 million newly displaced people just across this specific region, literally running for their lives. There are almost 15 million children in desperate need of humanitarian assistance. And in the horribly overcrowded makeshift camps where these folks end up, there's a terrifyingly rapid spread of diseases like cholera, mpox, and measles. With key cities entirely under siege, the civilian population is just bearing the absolute brunt of a massive humanitarian disaster. So when you're faced with such an agonizing, enormous humanitarian disaster, you have to ask a really foundational question. What is genuinely motivating the groups responsible for this expansion? Like, is it purely political, or is there something else at play behind the scenes?
Section 2. Rhetoric versus reality. Analyzing the claims.
Now, if you read their official communiques, the AFC, led by figures like the former Electoral Commission head Corneille Nangaa, works really hard to frame itself as a legitimate political movement. They claim to be a national liberation movement, engaging in what they call constitutional resistance. A massive part of their PR messaging is that they are simply fighting to protect historically marginalized communities, specifically the Tutsi minority in the region, from ethnic exclusion and targeted violence.
But here's where things get really complicated. When you contrast those polished official claims with independent reports coming from the UN, Amnesty International, and other major NGOs, a stark contradiction emerges. They claim constitutional resistance, right? But their actual day-to-day governance relies heavily on coercive control and illegal taxation. They claim to protect civilians, yet their military pushes are the direct cause of mass displacement and reported indiscriminate killings. And that whole facade of national liberation actually hides a very exclusive network completely dominated by Tutsi commanders.
The crucial takeaway here is that if a group's actions on the battlefield fundamentally contradict their stated political grievances, well, we have to look deeper. The rhetoric just doesn't line up with the reality. We need to find out who is actually backing this incredibly well-equipped military force, and exactly why they're doing it.
Section 3. Rwanda's strategic involvement, foreign proxies, and history.
You literally cannot understand the DRC today without rewinding the clock to 1994. Decades of cyclical conflict were triggered by the horrific Rwandan genocide. After the genocide, hundreds of thousands of Hutu extremists and ex-combatants fled across the border into what was then Zaire and is now the DRC. This deeply, fundamentally destabilized the whole region. Fast forward a bit to 2012, and the M23 rebel group who claimed to defend Tutsi interests emerged and briefly captured Goma before they were finally defeated. But then, in 2021, M23 surged back, only this time they were heavily armed, highly trained, and eventually formed the massive AFC coalition we're seeing today.
Look, expanding from M23's historical, smaller strongholds to the vast territory the AFC holds right now requires serious military hardware and intense logistics. You don't just pull that out of thin air. Now, Rwanda consistently cites very legitimate border security concerns regarding those historical Hutu extremist groups still operating in the DRC. However, UN Group of Experts reports have provided clear, documented evidence that the Rwanda Defense Force actively supplies M23 with weapons, recruits, ammunition, and sophisticated intelligence.
Now, we are just imparting the facts here. Kigali vehemently denies any involvement whatsoever. Yet, international bodies and the UN explicitly confirm their military backing. The situation has gotten so heated that the South African president publicly called for an end to Rwandan support after South African soldiers were killed in the conflict. And bubbling right beneath all of this military proxy maneuvering is a fierce geopolitical and economic rivalry with neighboring Uganda over who actually gets to be the main gateway for smuggled Congolese resources hitting the global market.
Section 4. The Mineral War Economy. Following the Money.
Okay, get ready for this number. Over $4 million. That staggering figure represents the estimated monthly revenue the AFC generates purely from directly controlling and taxing artisanal mining in the region. That is millions of dollars rolling in every single month to self-finance a massive military expansion, totally independent of whatever political goals they claim to have. It's undeniable at this point that this insurgency functions as a highly lucrative war economy. The AFC imposes strict, mandatory taxes on artisanal miners. We're talking $7 taken for every kilogram of coltan and $4 for cassiterite. For gold, local pit bosses are forced to hand over about a gram every single week. And remember, these aren't just random rocks. These minerals are the absolute backbone of modern technology. The smartphone in your pocket, the laptop you use for work, they all rely heavily on these exact supply chains.
This whole dynamic perfectly illustrates what scholars refer to as the New Wars theory. In this framework, violent actors completely blur the lines between political objectives and organized criminal extraction. That old debate of greed versus grievance just merges together here. The AFC might be leveraging very real historical ethnic grievances to get recruits and build legitimacy, but their incredibly targeted strategic capture of major mining hubs reveals a massive operation designed entirely to extract wealth and control the lucrative illicit mineral trade.
The geography honestly tells the whole story for us. There are almost 500 individual, verified, artisanal mining sites that have been completely swallowed up within the AFC's newly expanded territorial borders. When you realize that, you immediately understand why they are fighting so ruthlessly for this specific land. It is quite literally a gold mine.
The source material for this explainer quotes a scholar named Jackson who really hits the nail on the head. He says profits increasingly motivate violence, and violence increasingly makes profits possible. It's a devastating, self-sustaining loop. The continuous flow of smuggled minerals buys the rebellion's guns and pays the soldiers, and then those guns and soldiers go out and secure even more resources.
Section 5. The International Response, a Cycle of Conflict.
The contrast between how the world reacted in the past versus today is honestly night and day. Back during the 2012 M23 uprising, there was a fierce international backlash. The US and the EU actually suspended aid to Rwanda, applying massive diplomatic pressure that eventually helped totally dismantle M23. But look at the 2021 to 2025 resurgence. Today's diplomatic response has been shockingly weak. We see a few minor condemnations here and there, but European governments are largely prioritizing their strategic counterterrorism ties with Rwanda over implementing any strict sanctions.
So where does that leave us? Well, the UN's peacekeeping mission on the ground, MONUSCO, is waving red flags, warning of highly unpredictable instability. Recent peace talks, like the ones in Qatar that supposedly resulted in an unconditional ceasefire, have repeatedly, miserably failed because the rebels just flat-out refuse to withdraw from those key economic zones. Without a coordinated, genuinely forceful diplomatic intervention that addresses both the foreign proxy backing and the illicit global mineral trade, this entire region is teetering right on the brink of an even wider, far more devastating regional war.
We're going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Will international diplomacy finally step up to the plate? Or will this brutal cycle of resource-driven conflict just continue indefinitely? What is the true human cost of our global mineral supply chains? We really hope this explainer has helped you grasp the layered, very real drivers of this devastating conflict, way beyond the official press releases. Thanks for joining us today, and always keep questioning the surface narrative.